your other class. Not making me out to be a bad person. I was on time. That was about all you can ask for.
Let's do the most part.
For me. I made breakfast this morning too.
Captain, I hope you never have to do 7 a.m.
I have to do it at 5 a.m.
We literally just sat there and watched people switch
Forestry's
seasons
wild.
for
Never
half
do
an hour.
forestry. Never in your life. Or wildlife and fisheries. They're both about the same. Never do.
All right, so open up lecture files, and I want you to drag in the phone ring file onto your editor, please. If it's not showing, bring up your spectral frequency display. Phone ring onto your editor. Some of them are bigger. That's why I sent that. Yeah, some of them are a little bigger than others. We're gonna be doing some stuff in Premiere Pro with video, and so two of the clips, at least two of the clips are a 9 to something, at least a 9-minute video. All right. So what were the tools, the editing tools, selection tools that we talked about using to remove volume?
There was like the one that does like a box.
What is it? All right. The marquee selection tool.
Lasso.
The lasso. That's French. It's French. You make anything sound French and say it different.
Spot healing, bro. All right, let's do that. Make the computer something.
Make it what? I can make it all, buddy. As long as it is in my head, that's all that matters. Lasso tool, marquee selection tool, and what else?
Spot healing.
Spot healing. One more.
Paintbrush selection tool.
Paintbrush. All right, so we have 4 tools that we can use. We've used some of those selection tools. So the marquee, the lasso, and the paintbrush. How do those remove sound? How can you use those? Talk through those a little bit.
Each.
Yeah. Real quick.
Marquee is like general section.
Is there any irregular selections?
No, it's just a box.
Right. All right. So marquees, we can't do any irregular selections. Can we control the intensity in which we select? So you probably could if you did, but on first selection, you really can't do the intensity.
I mean, you can go back in and get it closer.
Right. But you can't go over it again like you could with what tool?
The paintbrush.
The paintbrush, we can do intensity, right? Marquee, what kind of selection is that? Irregular or regular?
Marquee.
No, I'm sorry, the lasso.
Irregular.
So irregular selection, can we control the intensity of initial submission, selection? No. Then we have the spot healing tool. What type of selection?
It takes stuff from around it and blends the audio together so that way it covers things up while using other sounds.
Good. Is it irregular or fixed selections?
Oh, it's fixed selection.
Good, irregular selections, right?
It's a regular selection?
Yeah.
You mean because you can like make it
Yes.
size? I thought you meant like
Marquee, you can't, right? Marquee is a precise selection. With the other tools, though, you can do irregular selections based on your sound. So you have limitations for those versus those. And yes, like Amon said, our spot healing tool is unique in the sense that it takes samples from around it to remove audio and to not touch the other audio. When do we typically use the spot healing? Huh? And what is happening at the same time? Right, so we have some type of a background noise that we want to get rid of, but it happens to fall inside someone speaking. And we don't want to remove that audio completely because we'll take away from that voice. And then what was the last thing that we finished up on in addition? The last noise removal that we did.
We were doing the pop,
No,
That like really low.
oh, the background noise.
the background noise, right?
When
A
it was all
constant,
current.
right? A constant noise that's in the background that continues throughout the whole thing. Now, what was cool about that tool is all we had to do is select one part of it, and then we could get away. It would remove all of it. Well, we can also do the same thing a little bit with some of the other sounds, like the phone ring. So what I want you to do is in your spectral frequency display, go find a section of this ringing noise, of the ringing phone.
You get that emotional bond with people.
Find a section of that is not anywhere near the voice, so that's on its own. Remember, you can right click. You should be able to right click. See if it works. Zoom in. And so I found a section over here. I want you to find a similar selection where it's not in the voice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove a specific noise. Now what do we have to pay attention to when it comes to a noise like a phone? Right, there's different tones, right? 3 different tones. So we're going to make sure in this, getting rid of this specific noise, that we're selecting all of these. So to get rid of a specific noise, we're going to use our paint tool, our paintbrush tool. Oh yeah, make sure you're putting your headphones in if you haven't done that already. So what I want you to do, how do we adjust the brush size? All right, use your brackets. First, I want you to select the bottom tone and do it fully, like I've done, so more than one pass. Then I want you to hold shift, and I want you to select, again, remember, make sure you're adjusting your brush size each time. Hold shift and select the next tone. Hold shift and select the next tone, and go over it a couple times so we're to totally remove it. But yours should look like this, roughly. No, shift is allowing us to select multiple things, just like we would use in Word. We don't do shift, it would deselect the first one and select the second one. Sorry. Ooh, that's nice. And remember, if you play this, it'll play just your selection. So this is where you should be at. And so now what we can do with this is similar to what we did with the background noise. Is everybody here? We can do kind of what we did with the background noise, is take out this sound, not only for just this area, but anywhere else that it exists in this clip. Nope. So let's go to effects. Let's go to noise reduction and restoration. And then let's go to sound remover. And it should say sound remover process. And let's go right here. You'll get this dialog that comes up. I would move this over here to the side. So the first thing that we need to do here is we need to teach Audition what sound we want to get rid of, which is based on our selection. So over here, I want you to click Learn Sound Model. You'll notice that it brings up a preview window on the bottom of our spectral frequency display. The preview on the bottom is what we're actually doing, and this is the original. Okay, so keep that in mind. The top is our original audio file. The bottom is what we're working on right now. So with those selected, it's learned what it needs to do, what we're looking to remove, and what we have is a few options when we go over here to presets. There's several options. Default is usually the go-to. It can usually do a pretty good job versus the other options of taking out what we need to. So if we go to default, and then if we go down to back to our the editor down here, click, and you can do deselect. If you take a look at the bottom preview of what we're looking at, you'll see that the phone that was ringing is gone, and you can see where it was up here. You can also take your playhead back to the beginning, listen.
You get that emotional bond with people, and you really see this stuff firsthand. That's when that lesson gets rooted very deeply in your head. You get that emotional bond.
Okay. I believe if you come up here and you have this little hoo-yah right here, this will split it. Good. Any other questions?
What did I do after that? Sorry. I lose track.
So as soon as you get there, you have it selected. You've already selected Learn Sound Model.
Yes. Now it's split.
All right. Then come up here to go to Presets, select Default. You have the dialog open?
It's not appearing. I keep pressing it, but it's not.
Come on, what do you got?
You said you press the deselect. Where is that? Control, Command D.
Not yet. Don't apply yet. Then I want you to go back to your spectral frequency display. Deselect. You can either click or you can do Command D. That'll deselect, and you can kind of see, listen, and make sure that it's remove that noise.
Is this only for non-constant sounds?
Yes, this is what I would use. No, this is probably what I would, because this is going to take that sound out completely. Remember that when we did the background noise, we're also still catching some of the other audio. You may, I mean, you could try it, see what happens. I would probably use the other option as for just background noise where it's a constant. For this one, I would use like splurts like this. Now, if it's a more complex sound and a little bit more integrated into the audio, which I think is what separates us a little bit from the background noise remover, then we have some of these adjustments right here. The sound model complexity, the sound refinement process. This is going to help you hone in what you want to remove. And then the bottom two options are going to be to hone in what you want to keep. Okay, so if the default doesn't work for some reason, you have these options. But if you move one up here, where you're looking, if you move one up here, if you adjust this manually, you also need to adjust this manually. Same thing down here. But you can still make those changes if you want to see if you can get a better, help really hone in that selection and removal of that sound. You're going to have to try these. You have a bunch of different ways you can do these. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. You'll have to try the different methods. Yes, ma'am.
Like if you were, say, hypothetically, you're interviewing someone and they were rubbing their hands together throughout the
Just hypothetically. I didn't actually happen.
whole interview. Would you recommend this to get that out? Like this? Or we're not speaking to experience.
And like hypothetically, this person has like
yeah.
So you're both in the same group, but you both have this hypothetical scenario. You could try it. If it is constant, maybe,
It's not constant. It's every like hypothetically, it's every like 15 seconds or so.
it may be something that you could try with this first.
Great.
I would say you can try using this tool, see if it works. I would also say, I would go between that. I probably wouldn't use the background noise. I'd probably try this one. Worst case scenario, you're going to be doing individually. But it's an option. So.
It's not. We're not saying this happens.
Right. It's hypothetically. I understand. Anyways, all right. So when you're done, you're content. Press apply, and then to unsplit it, if you come up here and do the show preview editor, it should go back down to 1, or you could keep it down to 2, whatever you want. but you'll see that it's removed the sound. Apply. And then right here, this little right here that says show preview editor, you can control if it's 2 or 1. We normally have 2 in here, 2 anyways for you for both channels. So another tool. Hopefully you don't have to use these, but rarely. In the event that you have a hypothetical situation where your interviewee is making some noise, or a plane comes for some reason, or phones, things that you didn't realize, then you have this option. And now what we're going to do is, we've done this all with the idea that these are just audio clips. What I want us to do now is go into Premiere Pro, because that's where a lot of you are going to be doing this. So you can see the direct dynamic link that already exists, kind of like we saw with After Effects. So you can edit it in Premiere Pro. But I'd recommend for you to take a lot of or the majority, if not all of your audio into Adobe Audition to make sure there's nothing you're missing. Okay? So with this, we can close this. I'm not going to save. And what I want you to do is open up a new Premiere project and label it Practice. Please. I think I just missed everything we just went over on the screen.
My movie still has the little movie clip that you want to see. It still has 23 minutes.
Just practice. All right. You know what? To cover this, we'll take it in through Premiere Pro, so it'll video it. We haven't done anything right now. We're going to start with interview 1. Yes. First and foremost, we're going to be working in lecture files, and then after we're done with that, you're going to be working on your own in the practice files. All right, so once you have your Premiere profile opened, let's bring in that phone ring again onto our timetable. And we're going to go ahead and edit that using the tool that we just used to remove a specific noise. So that'll capture on video. So we all here? Yeah, bring phone ring. We'll use this as the example that we'll bring in, and then we'll make that actual, that edit again using that feature. So it'll at least be recorded on the video, yeah. Hey, remember, each of you owns your own subscription. So on your free time, make sure you're checking to see if you need to update your apps. If not, it's going to remind you quite a bit. There's usually a little red circle at the top on the Creative Cloud logo that indicates there's an update. I think there's a few updates that just went out. How are we doing with getting here? Who's not here? All right.
I watched them.
Hey, that's a good idea. Let's watch. All right. So if you have your files, we're starting with just an audio. We'll also do a video. We're going to go here, right click on this audio, and then we're going to come edit clip in Adobe Audition. This is, again, where I would expect y'all to do the majority of your actual edits and not necessarily just bringing in audio. But some of you are going to do some different things, and this might apply. So again, if we come in here, let's zoom in on a spot of our audio that we want to remove with our paintbrush tool, and I'm going to go down to 1. Adjust it with size with your brackets, run over it. Pretty good that you're going to remove it. And you should definitely hold shift or it's not going to work. Thanks, Victoria. She's always got my back. Hold shift, make sure you have all your selections. What's my next step? Good, effects, noise reduction, restoration, and then sound remover process. Again, let Audition learn the sound. Once it's done with that process, you're going to see that both of these windows, bottom is preview, top is the original. We're going to go to presets, press default. You'll notice it'll blink. It's done that. Go back to our editor. You can deselect or just click in there is going to deselect. And you'll see that it's taken out the audio on the bottom. If we play with our playhead.
And that lesson gets rooted very deeply.
Right, so we lose that sound there. Same things with these little hoo-yahs. You'll at least hear that part. You won't see the rest. When you're done with that, press apply, and you're good there. If you're not seeing the preview window when you go or you want to see both channels, again, you have this show preview editor that'll give you both channels, and you'll be able to see that. Again, these are just left and right channels, whereas when we're making that actual edit, one is the actual file and one is our preview of what we're doing. So when we're done with this, because we're working in Premiere Pro now, we would close the Audition out. It's going to ask if we want to save changes. We're going to say yes. Now, one thing I want to point out is that when we make changes, audio changes to the audio file through Audition straight, what kind of edit? Was that a destructive or non-destructive edit that we were making? Why? Well, we removed sound, but why is it? What did you say?
Like if it's saved and you can't get it back.
What does it save it to? The original file. Okay, so when you go through there, when we do this through Premiere Pro, it does not do that. It creates an additional file, which is typically something extracted. If you look over here in your project panel, you'll see that there's a WAV file that's has the original name, but it has extracted added to it. It's also the clip that's now put into your timeline. Okay, so now it's made that edit and it's put it where you want it to go. Yes, ma'am.
How did you get from Premiere Pro to that's how you did it?
Right click and you go there. All right. Now listen, say for some reason you did that and you don't want to actually use that edit. You want to put back the original file and you still have access. You can see that over here. This is the original WAV file that we had. This is the edited one. If we go back here and we go restore unrendered, what you're going to notice is the extracted file is removed and your original file is put back on there. Okay, so you can go back and forth. It's also why it behooves you probably to go through Premiere Pro before you make things to your original files and you're not having to copy and make things like this. What you're also going to notice is if you go to your folder and you take a look, phone ring extracted is also created in there. So it creates a file in your file folder system as well as in Premiere Pro. But I'm going to go to edit and undo and bring that extracted back in. Any questions on that? I think that's pretty basic, but it's still something good to know. And especially when you're working in Premiere Pro, you don't have to do this whole thing where you're going back and forth. Same thing in After Effects. It's the same thing that you have with InDesign, works with Illustrator and Photoshop. And we talked about that in the advanced design class, but you have those options. So what I want you to do now is we're going to bring in the interview 1 to our timeline. And yes, this is from Florida. You got to work with what you got. That's why sometimes I take footage from lima.com because that is all the footage that I have.
What's your connection to Florida?
At all. All right, so bring it in here and bring it on your timeline. We brought the audio in first, so it's messing up the frame. Typically on these, bring in again bring in the file that will be typically the size that you plan to use. For us, what is the file we first bring on our timeline? From what source? Camera. If we capture all different footage, maybe we use a few different devices, what is our one go-to camera that we would take the footage from and put in first on our timeline? So our DSLR cameras, right? That's
And then
typically
phone or whatever.
right. So remember to do that, and this is also doing the same thing. We can easily resize that, but you have that. All right, so let's listen to this audio. That's school-based agriculture education. So you can hear me real good, right? What's that probably mean?
You got the camera on.
It's camera audio, because we're going to figure this out real quick. How is school-based agriculture education preparing college students?
I think one of the unique things about
All right. So I want y'all to, you need to get your ears working so you can hear this. But this is obviously camera audio. Now, what we did with this interview, what I did with this interview was I captured it on a separate device because we had other things working. For y'all, and I think what we're going to be doing Thursday, we just got the little movies in right before I came to class. So now I need to play with them to make sure I can tell you how to use them. I think what we'll do is we're going to go over the shotgun mics with Thursday. The shotgun mics are directional. What's that mean?
They pick up, and it's like they pick up a larger area than the mics. Something to do with like the way that the audio is captured around the microphone.
A little bit. Remember, it's more focused. So whatever you point at it, it's going to get that. It's not going to get everything else around it. That's also why we use a little cover on it to help reduce any of the noise that comes across it. But it's still directional. So whatever we point at it, that's most likely what it'll get the audio up. Okay? What's the best use for these? Or how can we use these? How so? So Mackenzie said interviews. Yes. That's the exact way we would use these. How would we use these in interviews?
You're in like a bigger space.
I wouldn't say necessarily bigger space. There's roughly 2 reasons that I can think off the top of my head why you would use it. What did you say?
If you were interviewing like 2 or 3 people like on a panel,
Good.
you didn't have one lapel mic, you had a boom mic.
Good. So, Catherine, if we were still in the other space, we'd still use the lapel because it's a little closer and it's going to get us a better sound. But if we have more than one person for some reason, like when we did the Rocky Top out in front of Morgan Hall, the lapel mic is what we used because that's all we had. Ideally, we would have 1 or maybe 2 shotgun mics in front, and that would catch everything that's coming at it. So for a group interview, why else would we use it? I would probably still use a lapel because it's closer and it's going to focus on that sound there. It doesn't have as far reach. I think your shotgun mic's going to pick up some stuff. What about if you don't want a lapel mic to be shown?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So you also have that option. So oh no, as I stand corrected. There's one more. Why else would we use the shotgun? We're going to use them a little non-traditionally, but what about your narrations? It's a better quality microphone that you're going to be able to use, and I have the whole setup, and I'll bring it in. I think we're going to send the Pelican cases back. I'm trying to make sure I don't have like 20 cases to take out, but I also want to make sure that y'all don't go home and when you handle an equipment like this, so it doesn't break, so it lasts more than 1 year. But your narrations, you'll also be able to capture those, so you'll get that good audio and you can put that in. So again, we still use the lapel mic, but we use one of the Zoom hand recorders that we have, because it'll capture a little better audio. So what I want you to do is the interview from audio 1, I want you to bring that in under the interview. Interview 1 audio. And what I want you to do, let's delete the phone ring. Let's bring over, I want to go to the very front of my timeline, and I want you to bring both of them flush. And then zoom out a little bit. I want us to listen to the audio we just brought in, which is on the audio 2. So come over here on your timeline, mute audio 1. There's an M. Click it. It turns green. And then I want you to go a little bit somewhere in the middle of the interview where he's talking and play it. Can we tell the difference between camera mic and not camera mic? Okay. So this is going to be a common thing if you're doing some of this stuff. With narration, not so much. But if you capture these separately, or if you're using the shotgun mic to capture a group for some reason, you need to match these up. We have 2 ways. There's a really cool, easy way, and then there's not so cool, easy way. And that's just if the easy way doesn't work. So what I want you to do is let's zoom in where we can see the audio a little bit. Actually, hold off on your zoom. First thing we do, select them both. Click, select. They should both be white. And actually, before we do that, mute the audio 1, unmute audio 2. If you play it, they're not matched up, correct? That's clear? With them both selected, right click and select synchronize. Make sure that the audio button on the bottom selected, press OK. It'll go through its process, and what you should see it do is it realigns it. And now if we go here,
that's probably one of the ways that they're being prepared.
And so it should automatically align it for you. That's best case scenario. Now in some instances that might not work, so we can do it manual. There's a clap test that you're supposed to do before you start using an external mic like that. All right, so before you start, hit a clap. What's the clap going to show us? Similar to a pop. So it's going to be a quick spike, right? That quick spike will be really important for you to go back. It might help the system match things up, but more importantly, it may have to help with you matching this up. So let's zoom in. And then increase the width of each of the tracks. 1 and 2. And I want you to first edit, undo. Zoom back out a little bit. Get where you're at. I want you to listen to track 1 and find a spot roughly where he starts talking with the interview and mute the other one. Then I want you to do vice versa and find roughly the part where he's talking and match those up a little bit. And then I want you to align those manually as close as you can get. Don't spend a ton of time on it, but as close as you can get to where they're looking at. And pay attention to the waveform where things are spiking. What's going to be the difference in the waveform here? So on the interview from the camera mic, what's going to be loud and what's going to be soft, sound-wise?
The talk will be really loud, and the background will be not loud.
He's going to be softer. Okay? I will be loud because the camera's right next to me. the interviewee is going to be more distant from the camera, so it's going to be quieter than me, okay? But if you think about the lapel mic audio, it's going to be the complete opposite. All right, so you can look a little bit at the spikes in the waveform, but it's not going to be exact because the reverse audio is going to be higher and lower. You're going to clap. So you're going to start your camera. You're going to start your external audio device you're using. You're going to clap. We're going to see a spike. And then from there, in the post-production phase, that'll help us out. It should help, hopefully, Premiere Pro line it up. But if it doesn't do that, then we can go manually and kind of see that spike.
Is that what they do that thing? It's like, what I'm talking about?
Potentially. I don't know. Maybe.
Those things are like,
Yeah.
rolling, take two, rolling.
I think it's for sound. I think it's
Well, I think.
for blocking.
Well, I think it could very well be for sound, but I also think it's for color too. But don't quote me on that.
Oh, can we have one of those? Can I do one? We're making some stuff.
Yeah, it's on the way.
That one?
Yeah, it's on the way, man. All right, listen to your audio. Match it up as best you can. You might want to zoom in a little bit so you can see. We already know it was a little off center. Where's Matt? Okay. Good. All right. So how is? All right. I think one of the unique things about negative. Awesome. Fucking, you gotta kidding me, bro. I think one of the unique things. Good. All right. So I have teaching learning classes and preparing college students. I think one of the unique things. Good. All right. So how has school-based agriculture changed? I think. All right. Are y'all here? How we doing? All right. So when we get right here, I'm gonna mute. I think I have it close. I'm gonna base on the bottom when I know he starts talking. All right. So what you can do here now is you can start making some subtle movements to get it lined up. So I'm going to select my bottom. I'm going to hold, I believe it's Option. Yeah, Alt Option. And then what we can do is with our period and our comma, we can move them left and right. I need to go left. I think one of the
I think one of the unique. I think one of the unique things. I think one of the unique things.
They're gonna add another noise outside.
The unique things about university level. I think one of the unique things about ag education at the university level is have the ability to provide a I think one of the unique things about ag education.
All right. Takes a little while. By the way, line it up as best as you can. Use that option alt, period, comma, move it left and right, and see match it up. Okay? Yeah, hopefully synchronize works. Makes things a lot easier. So what we're gonna do now, once you all have your files done, is I want you to be working on the practice files. You have 3 things in there. There's a constant noise. I want you to remove the background noise. 2, I want you to sync interview 2 with interview 2 audio. And 3, there's a bell chime within the interview audio that I want you to remove. Those are the 3 things I want y'all working on. For those of you, I said that I have your audio for your videos. Start bringing up your devices, one at a time preferably, and I'll give you those files here. What did I say? B-roll.